Hello, this is a presentation of our final project, Instagram's Impact on NBA and NFL. This is by Jackson Martins, Maya Pete, and Zach Scum. In this project, our main goal is to compare how the NBA and NFL perform on Instagram when it comes to fan engagement. These questions matter because social media plays a huge role in how fans interact with teams today. It's more important than just likes, it's a window into brand loyalty, visibility, and revenue opportunities. Some of our key research questions were which league has a greater overall Instagram following? Is there correlation between Instagram following and overall team revenue? Is there correlation between Instagram following and fan attendance? And lastly, do more followers translate to stronger engagement or simply visibility? Purpose of Instagram data collection for fan engagement analysis. We decided to focus on Instagram follower accounts because it's one of the most public facing and influential platforms for sports fans today. Follower count is a public and trackable and comparable metric. It helps explore overall digital outreach for each league, and it allows us to analyze how teams' following and media visibility directly correlate with team revenue and attendance. Basically, this helps us understand the real impact of social media. Is it just about looking good online, or does it also translate into business success and fan loyalty? Core variables, what we collected and why. First, Instagram followers. So total followers on official team account as of 2025 is what we recorded. And we just use this to measure social media reach and digital fan engagement. Second, we did annual revenue. So this is just the team revenue figures, and we use this to assess financial success and compare to social media following. Lastly, average attendance. This is in-person game attendance per team, and it shows actual fan engagement and loyalty. Analyzing relationships between variables. So the correlations we studied were obviously Instagram followers versus attendance and Instagram followers versus revenue. Firstly, attendance. Do teams with more followers also draw larger live audiences? This helps us identify if digital popularity translates into in-person loyalty. Secondly, revenue. Are more followed teams also more profitable? This tests whether digital fan base size impacts brand value and revenue generation. These findings can help teams and leagues see where they may need to improve or shift focus in their engagement strategies.
The entities we collected the data from were Statista and Yahoo. From Statista, we got revenue numbers for both leagues. We got the NBA Instagram followers from there. And from Yahoo, we got the NFL Instagram followers. And Statista, I have this additional section in here is because that's where Statista got them from. So it was Basketball Reference, ESPN, Forbes, and Instagram. The statistical analysis we used linear regression and correlation, which will come up a little later in the slides, cross-industry analysis, and comparative analysis. So these two charts right here kind of show the cross-industry analysis and comparative analysis. Top one's NBA revenue and Instagram followers. The bottom one's NFL revenue and Instagram followers. Just one thing to note, to not be deceived, is that the two axes on both charts are very different. For the NBA one, the total revenue one, which is on the far left, doesn't go up as high as the NFL one, and also their Instagram following on the right axis goes up a lot higher than that of the NFL. So here's the NBA data that we collected. As you can see, the average attendance for the NBA was just above 18,000 per game. Revenues for the average revenues was about $378 million per team, and average Instagram following was 6.23 million. And you can see in the two graphs on the right that we did linear regression and correlation between revenue in Instagram and attendance in Instagram. So for the revenue in Instagram, I had pretty strong correlation and had a correlation coefficient of 0.68. But attendance wasn't as strong for the NBA for correlation, as the correlation coefficient was 0.05. And here's the NFL data. As you can see, almost 70,000 people on average attended games. Revenue about 632 million per team, and the average Instagram following of 1.86. So a lot more revenue in attendance, but a lot lower Instagram followers. And the correlation between revenue and Instagram followers, it was moderate correlation. Had a correlation coefficient of 0.38 about. And then the correlation for attendance and Instagram followers wasn't as strong. It was actually kind of weak with a correlation coefficient of 0.15. So, results of the findings. For the NBA, we saw that there was a strong correlation between revenue and Instagram followers, but no real correlation between attendance and Instagram followers. For the NFL, moderate correlation between revenue and Instagram followers, but a weak correlation between attendance and Instagram followers. So the conclusions that we came to as a group was that the NBA relies more on Instagram to generate revenue than the NFL, but Instagram has a slightly bigger impact on attendance for the NFL than the NBA. And just some other things we wanted to note was that, as I stated before, the NFL has larger attendance and revenue, but smaller Instagram following than the NBA. Another thing to note was we just wanted, for the sake of time, we couldn't include these things in our analysis, but seeing how other variables such as star power, winning percentage, and things of that sort are intertwined and affect the relationship of all these things. And then also just different social media platforms will have different results. Like the NBA could use Twitter a lot more than the NFL, and the NFL might use Instagram a lot more than the NBA. It's just really dependent on the league demographics, so we believe that it will be different for different social media platforms in different leagues.
So from this data that we found, we have some practical implications. I found three important notes that I wanted to go ahead and go over. One, an understanding of which social media metrics display sufficient correlation. Revenue is shown to be very connected to Instagram, whereas attendance has little correlation to those Instagram followers. Number two is social media does not necessarily translate to a more successful league. The NFL makes significantly more in revenue despite being a much less popular league on their social networking sites when compared to the NBA, where they don't have nearly the NFL success in terms of popularity, but they are significantly more popular on their social media sites. Social media has varying levels of impact, and we can kind of tell this from the first two, depending on the league structure. The NBA is a very social media reliant league versus the NFL. As a result, the social media metrics are much more connected to the NBA versus the NFL. And this leads us right into our suggestions for sports industries. The NBA, or these sports entities being the NBA and the NFL. For the NBA, continue your investment in social media. What that is doing is directly correlating to your revenue, particularly, and cover, and then also invest further, get with Facebook, Twitter, Instagram to promote non-nationally televised games, and sometimes, in some cases, like the NFL was able to do with a Netflix or a Facebook live stream, where you can incorporate these social media networks to go ahead and get involvement over in those leagues and with those games rights partnerships. Also, invest in more short form and online forms of content to take advantage of your successes with social media. If social media is working, a lot of it is because it's a short content deal. That is working with the NBA. Do not go away from that. Continue that investment with the NBA. As for the NFL, invest in social media techniques used by the NBA to see if there are some untapped resources. The NFL is a larger league, not for a lot of reasons, but they can also take some notes from the NBA to open untapped resources that the NBA takes advantage of. If the NFL does not quite have at this point, that could open up even more resources for a much larger league like the NFL. And then 2, understand the value of your linear model and not stray too far away from it. What you have works, it's good, it's solid. You don't want to go too far away to lose the fabric of who you are. And so, that definitely is a fine line for those two when it comes to the NFL and their investment in social media. And then some overall takeaways on the importance on the sport industry with this data is, 1, this data displays that social media impacts it really differently. What works for the NBA doesn't necessarily work for the NFL, and vice versa. 2, sports leagues should value the connection between revenue and social media activity. That seems to be a much larger connection for both the NFL and the NBA versus talking about in-game attendance. And then, in that point, attendance is not as closely linked to social media. And so whereas, those are important measures to take and metrics to remember, that doesn't necessarily give you the most benefit when discussing social media content growth when compared to revenue. And then, how can this result in these data metrics benefit the sport industry on and off the field? First, let's start on the field, the playing surface, what's important. The roots, the meat and potatoes of what we do is, can this result, this result can result in teams adopting play styles that are easily marketable on social media, favoring up-tempo and explosive offensive styles to kind of promote this social media revolution that we start seeing. And then off the field, we can create a restructure of how sports organizations create strategic plans, giving a higher emphasis on social media interactions due to the connection to revenue, really honing in on the connection between social media and revenue.